What's your purpose? Do you know it? If you don't know, would you want to find your purpose? Now, this is the right place. This is Now Tell Us, your favorite podcast, and we have a special guest today. As always, we have guests come and tell us stories. They come and inspire us. They come and educate us on a subject, and always we have great guests. Now, our today's guest is very special, very special. Now, this is a guest who's interviewed thousands and thousands of people, thought leaders, influencers all over the world. He's a person who's been on many stages than he can count today, speaking and impacting the world. And having that experience, who can be a better person to tell us about finding your purpose than one special guest known as Poirier, who's going to be here shortly. Please, I would ask you to join me as we go and meet him. But before we do that, please remember to share this episode with all your friends. Subscribe to our channel, wherever it is that you're listening us on. And if you get to watch this after it's recorded, we thank you for watching. Leave us a comment. And as always, live your purpose. And now let's go find out how to find your purpose from Corey. So here we go. Hi, Corey.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing super fine, and it's good to see you here.
Absolutely. Likewise. Happy to be here.
Yes, we are very honored to have you on our show today. It is such a special honor to come to now to tell us something today.
Yeah, I'm super excited and looking forward to having a coffee style conversation.
Yeah, and just before we go deeper, I would like maybe to find out. My fans, my viewers are always interested in knowing where are these people coming from. Where are you in the world?
Yeah, so I guess for me, there's both sides of where I am in the world and why I am in the world. Excuse me. And the where I am is I'm in the East Coast in Canada.
Okay.
But I travel all the time, so I'm on the road more than I am home. And as far as why I am, I think in the world, what I'm kind of maybe called to do is I've been a professional speaker for 20 some years, and I have been in the speaking world as a speaker myself for years, and then eventually I started helping other speakers to get on stages and to get their message out to more people, which then led to me helping experts do the same. And so when I say experts, Anthony, I mean authors, speakers, coaches, healers, entrepreneurs. So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing now, is helping people get their message out to other people and create an impact in doing so, and on a big scale. So that's where I spend a lot of my time. And that's on the business side. So I run a business called Blue Talks, BLU Talks. Blue, excuse me, Blue stands for Business Life Universe. And I've jokingly said that if you took TEDx and Chicken Soup for the Soul and they had a baby on a honeymoon, we'd be the baby that crawled back. So that's kind of what Blue Talks is. We're a mixture between the two. So we're like, we do, some people on our stage speak on spiritual messages, some speak on business. So it's more of a mixture. And we help people, like I say, get on stages. So like we run our events at places like Harvard, Columbia, MIT, Cambridge, Oxford, UCLA, and so on. And so we help people get on those stages, and then after that, leverage that video to get more clients. So that's, like I say, where I spend most of my day. The other side of me is I've been a speaker myself for all those years. I'm obsessed with interviewing people. So I've interviewed almost 8,000 thought leaders. And I have a new book coming out, which is a fictional parable book. So it's fictional. It's like a storytelling type book, but it's loosely based on my life. And in the book, the character talks about some of the big name thought leaders that they've spent time with, shared the stage with, interviewed, what have you, and then share what they learned from them. And it's really my way of sharing what I learned from them. So it's called The Enlightened Passenger. And that's, I mentioned the Blue Talks takes up a lot of my time these days, but in the coming months, The Enlightened Passenger book is going to be what takes up the bulk of my time.
Wow. I've seen that book, The Enlightened Passenger. It has a good cover there. I love it. And
Oh,
we're going to find out much from you, what's inside there. But before we go there, you mentioned something that how you, I mean, you Blue Talks, talking, and you mentioned the chicken soup for the soul. And when you mentioned that, someone who's familiar with personal development would hear a name would quickly ring in his mind, Mark Victor Hansen. Now, I discover that you've interviewed him. You've been with him, not only interviewed him, but you've been with him for many times. And not only that, you've had like, I can't start mentioning the names. How has been that journey of interviewing great people like Mark and many other people?
well, yeah, thank you so much. And interestingly, if I look at my calendar here, I'll tell you because I'm lost on the dates right now as we
Yeah.
get busier. But yeah, so March 23rd, in fact, I was sitting with Mark in Phoenix, Arizona, interviewing him and his wife Crystal in a podcast studio, and so that was recent. And Mark, I'll say graciously endorsed the recent book as well, which is amazing. And so I've known Mark for a number of years. I've interviewed him, I want to say maybe 5 times. And yeah, so Mark is one of the influencers that has really impacted my life. Jack Canfield, Mark's old writing partner from Chicken Soup. I've interviewed Jack more than once, and he's had a big impact in my life. So the journey of interviewing people has been fascinating for me. A, because I'm obsessed with interviewing people. B, the book that changed my life was called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that's kind of what Napoleon Hill did. He went out and interviewed all these thought leaders and then shared those insights in different books and publications. And so I've been on shows where they've said, oh, so you're like a modern day Napoleon Hill. And that's like one of the greatest compliments you can give me, because I am truly obsessed with two things. One, just learning about people in general. And two, learning about what they've figured out that we haven't yet. So what I'm trying to figure out is I've jokingly, on one of our websites, we used to have Corey as pick the minds of thousands of thought leaders so you don't have to. So like the idea being is that I'm really going in to try to figure out what Jack Canfield does that allows him to stay at the top always and get to the top in the first place. What did the late Zig Ziglar do to get to the top and stay there? What did Lisa Nichols from The Secret do to get to the top and stay there? And some things they have in common with other thought leaders. Like one example, Anthony, is I've discovered thought leaders say no to things on average 50 times more than the average person. So one of the things is they know how to say no to the things that aren't going to move them forward so they can focus on the things that will. Well, that's a common thing I've discovered. But then I go to somebody like Jack Canfield, and he talks about his hour of power. Now, I know there's other people that have taught it before, but what Jack's hour of power looks like is he spends 20 minutes learning, 20 minutes meditating, and 20 minutes exercising. And so that's an hour. And he does that the first thing of the day before he checks his phone, before he checks email. And so the reason I think that works so well is because he's truly feeding his mind, body, and spirit before most people even wake up for the day, every day, consistently for, whatever amount of years now, 30, 40 years. Of course, he's going to rise to the top. So what I'm saying is that's something that makes him unique that I love to share because it's unique and not other people are doing it. But the idea of nurturing yourself and feeding your mind, body, and soul, I think a lot of thought leaders are doing. They're doing it different ways than Jack, but Jack has a unique way of doing it. The power of no, they're all saying no, whether they say uniquely or not, they're all saying no. That's something they all share. So I'm fascinated by what do these thought leaders share that we're not doing, most of us? And then secondly, what are they doing uniquely that nobody else is doing?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm obsessed with. And so the journey has been me learning those things.
Wow, that's quite a journey, quite a journey. It's a journey that I would, wow. I've been interviewing people for the past now 3 years or so, and it's quite an interesting thing. And I can imagine. How long have you been doing now, having interviewed 1,000, or I mean thousands, almost 8,000 people? How long has that been?
So I started officially interviewing people in 1996.
Wow.
So, to do quick math, what is that? 28 years? Do I have that right? Something like that. Let's see here.
Yeah.
28 years. Excuse me. So I started 28 years ago doing my first interviews, but they were like, I had a newspaper at the time, a small town newspaper. And so I was interviewing like an entrepreneur that might have 2 employees and they're just getting started. They might only be a month in business. So I was starting and I was interviewing people and learning about them. And I would, every now and then I would learn one thing they were doing different than others. But for the most part, it was small business owners that were just starting. So they were learning like I was. But that's how I started at 28 years ago. And then I did that for a while, but then I took a bit of a break and I was in sales, corporate sales for 10 years. But I took a bit of a break from the interviews. And then 2005-ish, I launched another newspaper, so a small business publication, and I started interviewing people again. And then we launched 5 books called Conversations With. And that was like me sharing the conversations I was having from interviews in book form. And then we kept doing that publication and we did 7 years monthly. So that's where my numbers got up really high because every month I was interviewing like 100 entrepreneurs for this publication. And then what happened was there was a transition period where I went from interviewing local entrepreneurs to saying, well, why can't I reach out to Jack Canfield? Why can't I reach out to T. Harv Eker and Robin Sharma? And that's what I started doing. And I was able to leverage that it was a publication because publications were disappearing. So I could say, well, we can get you on the front cover of a print publication that people can hold in their hands. So it actually helped me. And then what happened was at a certain point, I finally had to come to, some people call it a come to Jesus moment. But, I had to realize eventually this publication I was doing could never grow beyond the small little town I was in because most newspapers were shutting down. And so I realized that I needed to think bigger. And that's when I transitioned into what we called then online radio. This was even pre-podcasting in a lot of ways. And I transitioned into Blog Talk Radio, which was online radio. And then eventually that became a podcast. And that's, I still have that podcast going to this day. And so in the, all of what I just said there, that's where the thousands of interviews took place. They started with this little tiny newspaper 28 years ago, and then they just kept evolving. And I just haven't stopped interviewing people. I haven't got bored of it yet.
Yeah, and interviewing those people, one thing that you've picked from all those, and this is what we are discussing today, is about purpose. And maybe you can just tell us, because this is what we are here to discuss about today. How do I find my purpose? Why am I here? What should I do to just fulfill it?
Well, it's interesting because I have a book about this around finding your why that I put out a number of years ago. And then this new book, The Enlightened Passenger, we go into that, but as I said, more of a fictional type approach. I feel the 10 lessons taught in this new book, The Enlightened Passenger one, I feel like within those lessons, you literally will find a calling and a purpose. So for example, one of the things we teach in the book is why you need to write your own mission statement. So a purpose statement, a mission statement. Mine is to be the guy who motivates, donates, educates, inspires, and entertains. And so that's my mission. And so what that means is if somebody asks me to take on something, I can pretty quickly say, is it going to be any of those? If it's 0 or only one of those things, meaning it's not going to let me motivate, it's not going to let me donate. If it's only one of those or 0, it's an easy no. No, I'm not going to do that. If it's 4 or 5, it's an easy yes without regret. So the mission statement, A, helps you figure out what you're called here to do. And I will say, the late Zig Ziglar said this: you don't have to start to be great, but you sure have to start to be, you don't have to start to be great, but you sure have to get started to become, I said that wrong again.
You don't have to be great to get started.
There you go.
Get started to be great.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, that's the first time I ever kind of gapped on that. But yeah, so yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the idea is you have to start somewhere. And so honestly, I feel like in the book, we start giving you the insights of you start that mission statement. It doesn't matter if it's a terrible mission statement at first. As long as you get started, you can revise it later. We're in an edit world. Everything's print on demand now. So same thing with your mission statement. Write it out with a pen. Write it out and say, I want to be the best father in the world. And then you might decide, that's not really what I want to be 3 months from now. It doesn't matter. You just edit it then, but at least have a mission statement. So that's the first thing I would say toward finding your purpose is asking yourself the question, what is my mission? What am I called here to do? Now, I will say like some people will struggle with that. That's why I said it could be easy. Like, I want to be a great parent. But another step, and it's an exercise, I think we take you through it in the book, but either way, here's the exercise, is I always say the gateway to finding your purpose is finding a passion. So passion is what you do, purpose is why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the what could be comedy. It could be taking photographs. It could be being an entrepreneur. Why you're doing it could be because I want to create a positive ripple in everybody's life. So it's the purpose is usually a little more grandiose and bigger. But what I find is your purpose doesn't change as often. You could have a passion today that changes tomorrow to a new passion. So like you could pick up guitar and say, now that's my new passion. And you could have different passions, but usually your purpose will be the same. But it's not easy to say, what am I called here to do? And what's my why? And why, all that stuff. But it's a little easier to say, what do I like doing? So what I get people to do is start an exercise where they say, what do I enjoy? What is the thing? So make this list. What do I enjoy? What is the thing I would do if money wasn't an issue? If I won the lottery and went to a beach to retire, a month later when I was bored and came back, what would I then do? What did you do when you were a kid and people told you it wasn't practical or you shouldn't be doing it? Go back to that point and say, why did I want to do that? And so what I'm saying is you make this list of these things. What do people say you're good at? What do you do and the time you don't watch the clock? Make a list of those things. And let's say you come up with 8 things. I like photography. I like playing guitar. I'm just picking probably my own. I like entertaining people and so on. And so let's take the entertaining people. This is a harder one, but let's say I get to the entertaining people. What I also say is you have a list now, put them in order of the ones you love the most. Mm-hmm. So what are the ones that get you most excited? So let's say entertaining people went to the top of my list. And so I might say, okay, you know what? I'm going to try my hand at stand-up comedy. Well, for me, now I've decided, okay, that's the thing I think I might like. And so the second step to that is now I got to start taking action because I won't ever know if I like it until I start doing it. So let's say it's stand-up comedy. Well, that's a big step to jump on that stage. I know from experience. So what I would say is figure out what are the baby steps you could start today, right now, to get on a stand-up stage. So maybe it means buying a book about comedy and learning about it. Maybe it means taking a comic out for lunch. Maybe it means going to a comedy club and watching comics. Maybe you attend a workshop for comedy. Maybe you watch a HBO special and write, why did I like what this comic says? Why do I like this comic? And so you start taking those baby steps, take one at a time, give yourself a reward for each step you accomplish. So if you start with go to a comedy workshop, when you go there, plan beforehand what your reward's going to be, and then reward yourself for taking that step. Why? Because that's going to want you to take the next step to get the next reward. So let's say you have 5 baby steps to get on stand-up stage. By the time you get to that 5th one, and let's say the 6th one's getting on a stand-up stage, I think you'll find it's going to be so much easier to step on the stage because you took all those shorter steps. And so now, A, you'll get on the stage, and B, because you spent 3 months doing this, you'll probably even know if it's your passion. And so of course, if it is, you keep doing it. If you love it, you keep doing it. What I will say is people often ask me, yeah, but how do I get paid to do it? And my answer always is, if that's your first question, it's not your passion. Your passion should be something you'll do for free. And it won't matter if money won't have to be involved. You do it on the side if you have to, part-time, because it fills your soul. Having said that, what I find is if you do it for the right reasons and it fills your cup, eventually the way you get paid to do it will reveal itself. So, but as far as your question of how do I find my purpose, for me, it's not as simple as I'll just ask myself, what's my purpose? It could be, but it rarely is. So that what I told you about writing that list, starting to tackle those, that it might take you months to figure out one that you really love. But here's my argument to that, Anthony. They say that only 5% of people ever discover their passion or purpose in life. If that's a true number, wouldn't it be worth 3 months doing something you think you love to potentially find out if it is something you love? Because you should be enjoying it while you're doing it anyway. So you're just on an adventure, and maybe it'll tell you if you love it. But my experience is people will find out within months. So imagine finding out within months what you may not find out in your whole life if you don't take any action. So when you ask, how would I find my purpose? That's where I would start. Start doing something you think you like, make the list, take the action, reward yourself, get to the point where you're doing it for a little bit of time. Ask yourself, is this overfilling my cup? Is this getting my mojo working? If it is, keep doing it. And I think what'll happen for most people is eventually, if you keep doing that, the purpose side will reveal itself.
Wow, that's beautiful. Now, as you're talking, we made a mistake somewhere, and we kept on going. Now, and that reminded me of a race that I watched, and thank you for sharing all that. I know that people are going to apply that. It reminded me of a race I watched when a guy from a place that I come from, known as Eliud Kipchoge, was running to break the 2 hour barrier. And then the commentator said something that I always remember. I haven't said this publicly before, but then that impacted me very greatly. Now, he said, I've observed Eliud smile. He had gone for about 1.5 hours. I've observed Eliud smile. Now that makes that lets us know that he's going through some pain, because when he goes through some pain, he's smiling. Now, making mistakes, facing challenges, talk about all the negatives and how to maneuver as we go on our journey of finding our purpose.
So I guess there's two parts I would say to that. On one hand, well, I'll go even one step further. So on one hand, one of the things that's helped me over the years, now, unfortunately, sometimes we have to go through it to get to the stage. But one thing that's helped me is after I've made it through a couple of challenges. So even I wish I would have known this at the start, though. After I've made it through a couple of times that I thought were the worst things that ever happened to me, after that happened a few times, I was able to see, you know what? That ended up becoming the best thing that ever could have happened. It led to something else. And if I would have wished away that bad thing, the challenge, I wouldn't have got to the good thing. So what helps me now is I have what I call reference points. I can look back and say, look, I got through this 25 times. So why am I even sweating this stuff? So one hand, hearing it from someone else, that's been my experience over and over again. A lot of thought leaders, when I asked them if they'd go back into a time machine and talk to their younger self, what they would say they wouldn't even go back in the time machine because they wouldn't change a thing. But when they're struggling, they would have changed it. So what I'm saying is, knowing that most people wouldn't change the struggles or the challenges helps, I think. But you either have to have the reference points like me, so I have the past experience to look back, or you have to trust me and just not worry about it today. So I always say, like, ask yourself, is the thing that's ruining your life today honestly going to matter in a year's time? If it will, explore it further. But most people, if they can be honest with themselves, it isn't going to matter. So like, I don't mean to say this flippantly or in a very throw off type way, but it's like, I'm struggling right now financially and it sucks. And let's say, and I'm talking if they're struggling and they're saying it sucks and, I can only put $10 in my gas tank today instead of a full tank. I would still ask now, I wouldn't have done it at the time. I didn't know this when I was that age and when I was in that situation. But now I wish I could have went back and said, you know what? This won't matter in a year. I'm not going to remember that one day. And if I do, it's going to become a great story to share. I was like, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. Dwayne Johnson's company is called $7 Production because he had $7 in his pocket when he landed in America. He's worth almost $1 billion now. And some assessments say over $1 billion. And his story, he still shares the story. I've had $7 in my pocket. My point is, that probably at the time it was stressing him out. He's probably like, oh my gosh, like, filled with stress because he only had $7 in his pocket. And now it's the story that he rests everything else on, and that story that inspires so many other people. So back to the point is, the deal with the challenges. On one hand, you can go by a lot of the people that have already been through it and see that in most cases, they wouldn't wish it away. And it's a part of their journey. That's one thing. The second thing you can do real time is what I call making positive deposits. I've, in a cheesy way, named it posits. And so basically what that means to me is every day I'm depositing in my tank of positivity or inspiration. So what that means is I might listen to a powerful podcast. I might read a quote on Zig Ziglar's page about, why the little things don't matter, or they do matter, whatever the quote is, but a quote that jazzes me up. So, or I might do interviews like we're doing now, or like when I'm interviewing a thought leader as well, I might do those things. They fill my tank. So if I do that 10 times in a day, and even in that day, if I had one negative, one crappy thing that happened, it's going to be deflected like nothing because I have 9 positives. So people say, how do you deal with the crappy thing that happens now? I'm like, I've already built a Teflon. I put so many deposits in. This one thing isn't going to knock me down. So another thing you can do is start reading the right books, going to the right seminars, surrounding yourself with the right people. And I think you'll find it builds your tank. It fills your cup. Another thing I do, this is kind of interesting you asked this because it's right at my desk. For those that are watching, if there's video, if not, I'll tell you, it's a poker chip that has PMA on it, both sides. Where this is from is there's a book called Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude by Napoleon Hill and W. Clement Stone. Now, funny enough, the first 3 chapters don't tell you what PMA stands for. It just keeps using the acronym. What I find funny though, Anthony, is it says it right in the title of the book, and I never clued in, and I bet a lot of people didn't. It says success through a positive mental attitude.
Wow.
PMA. But PMA, what they say, is an invisible talisman. I decided to make it visible. They said invisible talisman that we all carry around with us. One side has NMA and one side has PMA. Negative mental on one side, positive mental on the other. I decided not to print it with negative. Why do I want to carry negative around with me? But the point is, I carry this chip every day, and it's my physical reminder that I can hold in my hand to remind me I get to choose today. So I'll give one more. I mean, these are multiple strategies, but I'll give one more, which is also a poker chip. I don't have it in front of me, but I have it right over there in a suitcase, bringing it back from my trip. It's a black one of these that says E plus R equals O. So it's a black poker chip that says E plus R equals O. What that stands for is E is the event, R is your response, O is the outcome. So, and the plus sign is the pause, the break, the time to think. So honestly, in this case here, what that stands for is, or how that plays out in the real world, is every day we're getting hit with events. Price of gas goes up, inflation, whatever that looks like. We can't change the event usually on our own. We can't change it. But what we can do is we can choose how we're going to respond to that event, and that will dictate our outcome. So a real world example for people that always seems to visualize it well is my mother and I are in a drive-thru on Mother's Day. We're in the drive-thru, guys yelling in line behind us to get out of the way. We're taking up too much time. My mother and I drive away down the road. My mother's partially deaf. She didn't hear him. So I said to my mom, I said, did you hear what that guy was yelling at us in the drive-thru? She goes, what was he yelling? So I told her, and she said, turn this car around. I want to go back and punch that guy in the throat. And I said, Mom, you're never like that. And I said, but here's the thing, Mom. It's Mother's Day. Maybe it wasn't about us. Maybe it was about what he's going on with his mother. Maybe he never met her. Maybe she's in the hospital. Maybe she died. And I said, maybe it's not about us. And thinking of that and thinking about that guy, she said, I never thought of it that way. We should go back and buy that sweetheart a coffee. Now, the event never changed, did it? Yeah. But her response did. Now, you tell me, would we have a different response if we went back to try to punch him in the throat versus buy him a coffee? Of course we would. Definitely. And the plus sign is the time you take to think about it, your response. So in other words, somebody gives you the middle finger in traffic or flips you the bird, as they call it. You get to choose. Do I honk at them? Do I chase them? Do I yell? Or do I say, you know what? Maybe they needed to poop real bad and they're in a hurry. They need to cut me off. And what I'm getting at is you get to choose that response. But the pause, the plus sign, is how you take a break and say, before I react, let me think of what I want my outcome to be. That coin reminds me to always, I'm hit with an event. It reminds me to think about how I want to respond, then respond and get the outcome I want. So in a nutshell, in a matter of about 5 minutes, those are some different ways I would say you can deal with some of the challenges you're definitely going to face when you jump down this path.
Wow, wow, wow. You've given us a full day lecture.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Corey. Now, we have people who are watching us, and one of them is known as Andy. He's a wonderful guy. And he's adding to what you just said about personal development, investing in your development. The more you invest in your development is the more you have to give or share. And he says, however, always share from your overflow or you're keeping your cup full.
So I have to add, so thank you so much, Andy. And I have to comment on that. So interestingly enough, in the book that I have coming out, I think I mentioned, but it's loosely based on my life. So the character, so if I shared the bill with Les Brown, then the character talks about how, one time I was sharing the bill with Les Brown and we were in the green room and he said this to me. So I reference a lot of thought leaders I want people to know about, or just I want to thank for what they taught me. And what's fascinating is the one Andy just said, the overflow part, I actually have in the book. I literally have a part of that statement in the book because I learned it from Lisa Nichols. So in my interview with Lisa Nichols, she said about most people say to fill from your cup once it's full. And she said, I disagree. Because if your cup's full, it's at 100%. But then if you start giving, you're already going down less than 100. You want to stay at 100. So what she said is put a saucer under that thing and fill when it's overflowing. That's when you want to start giving to others. And that's really what Andy just said. So I just want to say that's actually in the book. And it's a quote from Lisa Nichols that she said during an interview to me. So I love that. And so obviously I agree, or I wouldn't have put it in the book probably. I agree. And I also agree that the more you have, the more you need to give or share. And I do feel there's a lot of people that still don't get that. So we have to be the ones that do it. So eventually they clue in as well that, if they've been out there learning and maybe they're a speaker on the stage and they speak to audiences and get paid well to do it. It's sad to see some people like that actually still want to take and take and take. So I think we have to be the example for those people as well.
Oh yeah, sure. We need to be the example. Whoa, 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 whoa! This is wonderful. Thank you very much, Corey.
Oh,
Now, looking at your book, this is The Enlightened Passenger. And to anybody who's listening or watching us, you need to go and get that book. And I don't know whether it's released yet, but Corey is going to tell us as we keep going. Now, it's the subtitle is The Flight That Changes Everything.
mm-hmm.
The Flight That Changes Everything. Tell us about that.
So, well, and I'll tell you, interestingly, Anthony, we're doing this interview, and the book. It's so what we call the book funnel that we're setting up for people to go buy it through a funnel is actually going to be probably set up in 2 or 3 days. But what we're doing is we're giving away some really epic bonuses. So, like one of the bonuses is us teaching the system we've used to help people land branded talks. So we've had countless people land their TEDx talks using the exact same system. Normally, that's a $5,000 plus program. And we're giving it away with, well, not the whole program, but we're giving away a training based on that with the book. We're giving away a book called Get Paid to Speak with the purchase of the book. We're giving away my top 10 insights. So there's a whole bunch of bonuses that I don't want to see people miss here, even though the funnel's not set up. So here's what I would say as far as how to get the book, and then I'll answer your question more directly. But for those listening right now, if you want to grab the book now and not wait till the site's up in 2 days, because a lot of us won't get back to 2 days and get back there and do it. So if you want to get the book now, go to any of your places like Walmart, Target, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Go to any of those websites, punch in Corey Poirier. My other book might come up, The Book of Why, but look for The Enlightened Passenger. Buy a copy and email me your order number, and we'll make sure you get the bonuses by next week. Because as soon as the website's up, the bonuses will be ready, but we'll make sure you get them in the next few days. So if you want to buy a copy, I think the book's only like $16. It's a smaller book, so it's a lower price. But yeah, if you go buy it now at any of your preferred site, send me the order number via email, which I'll give you my email, and then we'll make sure you get in for the bonuses. And the reason we're doing it that way is because that allows us to have the book tracked on the bestseller list if you buy it through your preferred retailer. But my email to send it to is pretty easy. I'll give you the one of Corey, Corey, at Blue Talks, blue without the E. So BLU Talks with an S on the end.com. So Corey at bluetalks.com. That's how you can get the bonuses and make sure you're in for those. In the interim, as far as the book itself and the flight that changes everything, how that all relates, basically the book's about 2 passengers on a plane, young guy, old guy, strangers. Young guy's a business person who's kind of cocky and thinks he's the best of the best. He gets in first class and buys the seat next to him because he doesn't want anybody next to him. He just wants to work and sleep. He falls asleep. He wakes up and there's an old guy sitting next to him. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what are you doing here? And the old guy's like, oh, they bumped me because there were no rooms left in economy. So they bumped him up. And he's like, ah, crap. And he's like, I'm just going to go to sleep and not talk to this guy. But he finds out the old guy's wealthy and the young guy wants to know how to make that wealth. So he's like, oh, I'll listen to him just so I can learn his secrets. And anyway, of course, as he listens, the old guy shares these 10 life lessons that change the young guy's view on life. So it's basically those 10 lessons is really what's in the book, but it's the old guy sharing it through his journey and sharing his story. And the young guy eventually realizes maybe he doesn't have to live life where he's always taking and, and always thinking about how he can make money and never thinking about the little moments and all that. So it's basically the flight that changes everything. It's because on that flight, it changes the young guy's perspective on life.
Wow. And I believe that is going to change a person's perspective on life once they go get the book. So you can follow up with all that have been given to you by Corey to go and find your book. Those who are in the US and Canada, they can always go to Walmart. Do we have a Walmart in Canada?
Yes, absolutely we do. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you go there and get the book. And those of us who are international, how do we go about that? Now, tell us, Corey. Maybe send you the message. Did I get the email correct? Let me see. Is that the correct email?
That's it. No. The .net shouldn't be there. So it's Corey@bluetalks.com.
Yeah, that was it's Corey.
There we go.
At bluetalks.com. Sorry for the net.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can send Corey a message at corey@bluetalks.com. I guess even from the international side, they can always find out how to go about getting a copy. Which websites would you suggest that we also get to connect to get you through?
Uh, so, well, I'll tell you. If I think about, like, if I talk about the book in terms of that site that's going to be up, well, maybe I won't say that because they'll I don't want to confuse with too many
Oh,
different addresses. So
okay, wait, wait.
I'll stick with my own.
Yeah,
If people want to reach out to me, I mean, that email I provided is a way to reach out to me too,
okay.
but they can go to CoreyPoirierMedia.com if they want to just want to follow me, see what we're doing, connect, all that kind of stuff. CoreyPoirierMedia.com. But like I say, in the interim on the book, I mean, the easiest way is just send me an email and I can help you through it if you're having any challenges. But like I said, it's pretty straightforward. You just go on Amazon, let's say, whatever one you choose, but let's say Amazon, order the book. You're going to get an order number when you're done. Copy that order number, email it to the address we said, Corey@bluetalks.com, and then we'll make sure you get the bonuses. So it's pretty easy.
Okay, okay. We're gonna edit that in the description. We had some of your other website, but then we're gonna. You can find that in the description. You who's watching there. Once we are through with this, it is gonna be in the description. The website plus the email, and you can always reach out to Corey. Wow, wow. This is good. This is good. Thank you very much, Corey, for coming to our episode.
Oh, thank you so much, Anthony. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, we are almost coming to the end of the show, and before we go, uh, yes, Andy says great stuff. Thank you, and just keep going. Thank you. Yeah, I would like to keep on going, Andy, but we have Corey, who is such a busy person, and I must apologize because I think we've gone time overboard. So if there's anybody else waiting for you, tell them sorry on my behalf. But before you go, we always ask our guests to leave us with a few words that we should always remember. Which are they coming from Corey? Few words that we should always remember.
Live on purpose. If I could go to my younger self, I would say that that's a struggle I faced, is that I didn't have a purpose first 20 some years of my life. I struggled with anxiety, hypochondria, and depression, like everything. And everything changed once I found what I was called here to do. And Viktor Frankl, in a book called Man's Search for Meaning, he makes the case that that's how he survived the Holocaust. And as a psychiatrist, he started actually helping people find meaning in their life instead of prescribing or talk therapy. And he said the results were astronomical. He even created his own actual psychiatry around it. And so those words, live on purpose, that's why I would say it. It's what it can do for your life. I understand if somebody's never experienced it, they don't even know what that is. But what I can say is once you've experienced living with passion and on purpose, you can't go back ever again. So my thing would be whatever it takes for you to find your purpose. And we did give people some tips earlier. We gave an exercise they can take. My one thing I would leave people with is figure out whatever it takes to find your purpose.
Yeah, there goes it. There it is. You've been wonderful, Corey. Thank you very much once again.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, Anthony.
Yes, and to all those who've been watching or listening, we thank you for taking your time. And we've come to the end of today's episode at Now Tell Us. This has been your host, Anthony Murore, and together with our wonderful guest, Corey Poirier, we're saying, find your purpose and live your purpose. And until next time, it's bye for now. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.